All right, John, well, welcome back to another working session, man. Looking forward to digging into the business updates as usual. And I think we've got a very interesting icebreaker for this week that just kind of landed in my lap. But before we get into that, how are things on your end? How are things out there in Colorado? Things starting to warm up, hopefully.
Man, things are beautiful in Colorado. It rained for the last 3 days, and it is just one of those crystal clear blue Colorado days. I took a walk this morning, as I usually do, and reached about, I don't know, 8, 10 blocks west of here, and there's like a school and a ton of I live in a very like green neighborhood, but there's like a school with all these like big bushes and such, and dude, the smell was intoxicating. Like, I was just like, this is the best smelling thing I've ever smelled in my life. Like it was unbelievable. It's like all the plants just blooming, and our black cherry trees are buzzing with bees and all that. It's beautiful. Yeah, man, things are really good out here. They're super busy with work right now, which is a great thing, and we'll get into that. But yeah, man, I'm overall doing well, and it's good to see you. Good to be back on the mic.
Yeah, yeah, same to you. Yeah, things are good on my end too. I was actually met with my financial advisor, just personal finance stuff. We do like an annual
Mm.
review, and I was kind of like, hey, just so you know, this whole Castaway thing seems like it's going to be more significant this year. So we're going to have to figure out how that affects like the personal tax return and some of the strategy behind that, and like all
Yep.
those things passing through. So it's a nice problem to have that we have to take that a little more seriously this year. So just a reflection of hanging out with you every week and being held
Absolutely.
accountable to goals and things like that. Um,
Yep. And the best tax strategy is always making another dollar.
yeah,
So
right. That
let's
makes
do it.
sense.
Yep.
Cool. All right, so let's get into this icebreaker. I will put the link in the show notes for anyone listening. But basically, I got this video from Sam Shepler, who's the founder of or is it Testimonial Hero? Actually, is I think he's
TestimonialHero.com,
yeah,
I think. Yep.
testimonialhero.com. I had a typo in the sheet there, but basically, he took over the course and the community called Productize that Brian Castle built. He bought it from Brian, and he's the new community manager. And so in there, he dropped this video. So hopefully Sam forgives me for sharing it with the world because I'm not sure if that's supposed to be a member benefit, but he's a pretty generous guy, so I think he'll be okay with it. Um, but basically, I sum it up as like the case against using subscriptions, which is weird for a guy that runs a course and a community around productized services, which heavily rely on subscriptions. And this is something that you and I have been talking about on and off lately, and subscriptions versus bundles or a la carte or usage rates and things like that. So I just thought it'd be interesting to get into this, and maybe I'll start by just calling out a couple of interesting points that jumped out at me when I watched the video. One is this alignment between productized services and software, and really subscriptions work for software if and only if your churn rate is pretty low. So he cites this number of 5%. Ideally, it's around 3. So if you're retaining folks for a long time, then subscriptions work. But that kind of churn rate is almost impossible, according to Sam, in a marketing service arrangement. So that jumped out at me. And then the other thing that jumped out at me was instead of focusing on subscriptions and recurring revenue, focus on lifetime value. And this point here was basically like subscriptions come with a certain amount of emotional and cognitive baggage where it's like, everybody's got that subscription where like, I really should cancel that, but I know it's going to be a pain in the ass to call in and make it happen or whatever. And it's just like, do I really want to be locked into this gym membership for $100 a month? What if I don't go? What if I don't get the results? Whatever. That sticks with you. Whereas what he was saying is if you sell someone a bundle instead, like a 12 episode bundle in Castaway's sense, then they might cancel or they might stop after that bundle, but they're more likely to come back because they don't have that baggage associated with, oh, I got to start another subscription and then I got to go with the guilt of canceling that again and stuff like that. So I don't know. Those 2 points jumped out at me. Was there any reaction to that or any different points that you wanted to call out from the recording?
Yeah, and I really enjoyed listening to it. And I don't know Sam personally. I follow his stuff online. He's definitely built a cool thing there at Testimonial Hero. Um, and it's funny because when I first pulled it up and he was talking at the very start about churn, about like SaaS and why subscriptions make sense for SaaS and churn and all of that. And I fundamentally disagree with how he kind of positioned all of that there at the start, just because I work with so many SaaS founders
Mm-hmm.
within Growth Accelerator. But I didn't stop listening, and I kept listening, and I actually really liked a lot of the stuff that he had to say, and it worked well with a discussion I was having with my wife this morning. And yeah, I think I really liked his focus on lifetime value. I liked his focus on getting cash in the door, right? But I think overall, kind of at a meta level, I think what I took away, and he talks more about it at the end about like kind of the, the trade-offs of stuff. There's subscriptions, and that has downsides. There's bundles, or episodes, or in their case, like, testimonials, whatever. It has pluses and downsides. So do subscriptions. There's pluses and minuses to everything, I think, is kind of what I arrived at. And the thing is, to me, and from my perspective, it's not this one is better than this one. It really comes down to what is right for the kind of service or software or whatever that you are offering, right? And whether it's output based, it's usage based, like whatever. Like, for me, for example, with Credo and we use ActiveCampaign, or like I'm using Bento. I just signed up to Bento. Shout out to Jesse for EditorNinja. Those make sense for me to pay monthly. By like, number of people that I have, and we're sending out emails. So not charging me per email and like that kind of thing. It's like that would get nickel and dimey, right? And software is cheap to operate, right? Like each incremental customer basically doesn't cost you much at all. Maybe a little bit in support and that kind of thing. But for like, productized services like Testimonial Hero, honestly, Castaway, Joel Kleckke's Case Study Buddy, right? Like those things are not cheap to do. And so like having someone on a subscription when they might do, 2 episodes a month, they might do 6 episodes a month, right? Maybe you should sell them 8 episodes or do bundles of 4 episodes or something like that. So you get to front load that revenue. But the downside is you still have to deliver those services in the future. So it's on your books as collected revenue, but not yet delivered. And so like that can become a challenge, like at the end. This isn't something Sam talked about at all. Like if he wanted to sell Testimonial Hero and he's collected $250,000 in like cash, but hasn't delivered it yet, that's a liability on his books. Mm-hmm. And so a potential acquirer is gonna look down on that. So that is a downside, as opposed to like SaaS where monthly, you're kind of delivering it. So, but it did really make me think, because I've been thinking about this a lot with EditorNinja, and I haven't like arrived at anything yet, but I did roll out word bundles last week, and I had someone buy one today, actually, not the person I was expecting to, but I had someone actually on a subscription buy one, which was interesting to me. And I think he was under the understanding, which is not how I intended it, that basically like he has his subscription but then he dropped 75,000 words on us in one shot overnight. And I think he was thinking like, oh, I need to prepay for the volume I'm about to drop on you so that then you can make sure you have the capacity. And I'm like, well, that's maybe a fortuitous thing, because maybe that is how it should be, right? So there's like a base subscription, or you pay a bunch up front for a certain amount of words or something like that, and then you re-top up. And so it's basically like having a subscription. I just get to front load all of that, or it's like offer a bigger thing up front. And this doesn't make sense for Testimonial Hero, maybe not even for Castaway, definitely not for Case Study Buddy, but for EditorNinja it might, because it is ongoing needs, right? People they're uploading content all the time. And so it's more like a design pickle or something like that, because we just have a higher volume coming through than like you might with like producing, a full episode, which costs you, $1,500. For me, getting a 2,000 word, article edited cost me with editors $20, $23, something like that. So more than that, like 30. But still, it's like, it all depends on the volume and like the problem people are seeking to solve. So I liked a lot of what he had to say. There was just a bit of like nuance there, and the pluses and minuses that I don't think came across. But his advice for like high ticket stuff like Castaway, so I think, you should seriously consider it for Castaway. Yeah, but also his thing about like, and you said it's easier to sell someone a $4,000 package than $1,000 a month subscription. Yeah. I heavily agree with that. And so like, yeah, can you sell them, up front and then push hard, for 4 episodes, and then push hard to get them to renew after those 4 episodes, right? Like, I think that could work very well for you, and could work well for me too.
Yeah.
So
I think Sam talked about that too. He's like, I don't hate subscriptions as kind of the upsell. So sell the 12 episode bundle or whatever as a limited engagement. And then at the end of that, after they've seen some of that value and they've been through the experience, assuming things are going well, try to upsell them to a subscription, because they've been through 12 iterations of it. And because for whatever reason, even if you say $1,000 a month, people immediately start calculating the annual cost. So I'm going to pay $12,000 for podcast promotion. Like, am I going to get an ROI on that? Even if you say cancel anytime, right? Even if you say cancel anytime, they still jump straight to that annual number, and it gets to be a big number. Whereas if you're like, hey, just get 4 episodes for $4,000 or whatever, then people are much more inclined to jump onto that. So, but I think your point is, is solid in that, like, I started to think about, well, how much of this is just Sam's business? Because one of the questions that I posed back to him in the productized community, because I bought the course and I had access to it, was basically like,
I'm in there too. Yeah.
was like, so if you build your service on the back of a recurring activity, blogging, podcasting, publishing YouTube videos, if the client's doing that every week or every month on a set schedule, which a lot of folks are, and your service is built on top of that, then does a subscription make more sense? Does that change your opinion? Because candidly, like, we almost became TestimonialHero clients at The Good. And the reason we didn't, he didn't force into a subscription, but if he would have, I would have said, I don't know that I can get a client to get on the phone with you every single month without interruption so that you can produce a case study every single month, right? Like, there's a scheduling issue there, and there's not a whole lot of incentive for the client. They're kind of doing us a favor. So if you tried to put me on subscription, I would have been hesitant because I'm not sure that I can do my part to get the value out of that. So that's why I think bundles work for him, where it's like, can I get 4 clients on the phone with you sometime this year? Yes. But at the same time, like you said, you're carrying that revenue and not recognizing it until that service is delivered.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this is also because I talked about this a bit with my coach, Chris, a few weeks ago, and his advice, because I was talking with him about word bundles and I was like, should I do this? He's like, yes, but have it, you have to use them in the next 12 months. Right. So that, like, the person has to use it in the next 12 months, because otherwise it's that just ongoing liability. And company he was at in the past bought another company that had a ton of those liabilities on the books, and they just had to write it all down, like millions of dollars had to write it down. So, it's just something to be aware of. But to your point, and it's something you just said triggered this thought for me, this is also, I think, the argument for kind of having different ways for people to pay, right? And I think we're at EditorNinja, where we may end up is like something up front. It's almost the gym launch model, where it's like something up front, $2,500, $5,000, something like that. And that gets you style guide put together, like all of these things. And then it's like, then you basically buy like, bundles of words, right? Increments of 50,000 or 100,000 or whatever that you're going to have for that month, right? Also, so you guarantee that capacity, and we're able to capacity plan around that, right? But then other people, like an in-house team, might not be able to do that because they're like, well, I don't have that like budget to just use like that, like an agency does with their capacity going up and down. I just need to, like, I know I'm going to have 60,000 words a month. Great. Cool. It's going to cost you whatever, $1,500 a month. Right. And they're like, cool, sounds good. And they have it done. Can we pay in advance? Sure. Absolutely. Right. And then they just like have all of that, for the next 12 months or whatever. So I think there are also, like, within, I mean, this is something we could maybe debate in the future on the show, is when do you offer different levels like this, right? Like, you have I have one-off docs, I have bundles, and I have subscriptions now, right? And they're all meant for different people. So, so it really goes back to, like, who is your prospect? Who is your ideal customer? And then also, how do you focus, right? On them. So, like, do you say, what, for the next 6 months, we're just doing subscriptions, right? But then, like, you hear 3-5 times, well, I kind of just want to buy a bunch of words. Mm-hmm. Okay, like, let's do that. Like, it's just as the market drags you there, and adjusting to what the market wants, not what you want to have, right? And like what you've been told you should have, and just being stubborn, Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's another data point in support of, we talked about last week, you're doing sales demos. I'm not really. I'm doing this kind of asynchronous sales process. Like, if my website doesn't answer your question, shoot me an email or send me a zip message or whatever kind of thing. And I'm starting to think, like, yeah, if I had a sales demo, you could definitely present subscriptions and bundles next to each other. Or you could listen to that prospect and say, I hear you saying this is a new show. You're not sure if you're going to continue doing it forever. Why don't we just get that initial season 1 done? Let's get you an 8-episode bundle. Here's the price for that. In that conversation, you can do that. With my approach that I currently have, I think about how would I even structure that on the website, picturing the navigation, because you're going to have repurpose podcast, repurpose webinar, repurpose conference talk, whatever. Those are services. And then inside of each of those services, it's like, do you want a subscription or do you want a bundle? And then do you want a 4-episode bundle or a 4-webinar bundle or a 12-webinar bundle or anything in between? So then you get all these different, like, combinations and variations of those things combined. And it's just like, yeah, that gets really messy really quick. Just even the basic checkout, it's almost like, how do you solve for that? So yeah, I'm thinking you got to kind of have maybe a central offering around one or the other, but then kind of push folks into a sales demo, or even if it's recorded, like, here's our recorded sales pitch. You can watch it. And in that deck, you're kind of saying, like, if this sounds a little scary to you, we do have a bundle option. Here's what that looks like. Ask about our current pricing here, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And for you, like if you were selling those bundles, just like Sam said, if you're selling those bundles and you're getting, a 5K, like, shot of revenue in the door, right? And yeah, you have to deliver it over the next, let's say that would be 5 episodes, right? You have to deliver that over time, but also like you can pay a salesperson to take those calls then,
right?
Yeah. If you have the capacity to fulfill it, right? Like if you're getting a bunch of people, you get, 5 people to say yes, like, oh my God, we just made 25 grand. And then it's like, and we have 25 episodes to produce. Do we have the capacity with our team to do it? Right. Yeah. That's where the problem comes. But I don't think he's wrong, for the right type of service.
Yeah. That was the other question I posed to him is how do you feel about somebody with a newer productized service starting with subscription to build up that war chest, as he called it, that financial war chest, and then moving toward a bundled model later on in life. And he did get back to me. He said, I'll record you a video tonight. So unfortunately, I don't have it in time for the podcast, but maybe next week we'll share Sam's update if he gets something over to me. The one last thing I wanted to call out about this before we get into the business updates is this other point that really jumped out at me is like, predictability doesn't have to come from pricing. It can come from lead generation. And I thought that was kind of a mindset shift for me. Like one of those things that you probably knew, but hearing somebody else say it made it kind of click for me, which is like everybody wants subscriptions because they want to have this stable income month over month that they can hire against, that they can forecast against, whatever. But you don't necessarily have to have it from pricing. You can have it from knowing that a certain number of leads are going to come through the door every month because you figured out some kind of acquisition channel. And as marketing guys, self-proclaimed marketing guys, it made me think a little bit about like, do I need to solve for subscriptions or do I just need to solve for like one repeatable, sustainable acquisition channel that keeps those conversations flowing and then just sell those folks bundles or a la carte or whatever we're going to do? I don't know. I'm not saying I'm going that direction, but it made me think about it at least and consider it.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting, consideration, for you. You just have to know that you have that like consistent, consistent ability to scale. And to deliver that work. But I don't know. I think it's seriously worth considering. And was like bang on what I was talking about this morning with my wife when I woke up and looked at my phone and was like, holy crap, we had literally 4x. We had 82,000 words uploaded overnight. And that is 4x what we edited all of January. Was like, okay, like it's time to make this thing go, and like, how can I make it work for like capacity planning and revenue and all of those things? So it's powerful stuff, right? And I think there's a lot to what Sam's saying. It's very similar to what Alex Hormozy talks about in $100 million offers and how gym launches worked, right? It was like an 8K up front and then like 800 every 4 weeks for the next year or something like that. And I mean, they built a $40 million a year business in 3 years, something like that. All of that model, like, is insane. So it's straight productized service and training, like, and then they offered services and all their supplements and all that other stuff off of it. But like, it works. It's been proven.
Right. Cool, man. Well, other than sales going well and having that whale client just kind of fall in your lap, what else is going on at EditorNinja, operationally, sales, whatever you want to share?
Yeah. So we ended up, April numbers, we ended up $45 short of 60,000 ARR. So we did $4,955 in revenue. I was like, barely missed it, but that was cool. Growth from the previous month, which is great. Just the big thing on the ops side is figuring out capacity. And that's really the main challenge right now is like, I had a call with one of our agency customers yesterday and they were like, yeah, we're going to have 100 to 140,000 words this month. And I've been seeing the volume increasing from them. And they're like, and we're going to have that or more next month. I'll let you know mid-May what we're going to have. And so like for me now, so I literally messaged my lead editor, Sophia, and was like, we need more editors. So like, we're probably going to bring on 2 more. I just brought one on last week and we're going to bring 2 more on by the end of the month. Cause like, we're probably going to go from, by the end of June, by the end of May, we probably need 400,000 words of capacity every month, which is crazy because we did 23,000 or 21,000 or something like that in January. So it's just for us right now. It's like, how do we plan out that capacity? So we're moving to a model of every customer has a lead editor, and then that lead editor has a backup editor. So like for, agency A, editor A is their lead editor. But that lead editor there basically has two, or their managing editor is probably what we'll call it. That managing editor is responsible for editing as much as they can, but once they're at capacity, they have a backup, right? So like, editor B is editor A's backup on these 2 customers or whatever. So we're really trying to do that, for like quality, so the editors get to know each customer. The customer also knows who is working on their stuff, right? And so that becomes a sales point too, where it's like, you're on this level, you're at this level of content, you have a dedicated editor, right? And they have a team that may help them out, but like they are ultimately responsible for it, right? For QA and all that stuff and quality and all that. But then this is something I've been asked about many times, like, well, do I get a dedicated editor, right? Or is it just the same person? And so now I can say like, yes, you have a dedicated editor. Your editor is so-and-so. But yeah, that's the big, like it's getting operationally heavy, which is not a bad thing. But it's time for me. I'm realizing it's time for me to find a good like developer to work with consistently to build software to help us with the operational stuff. So I'm not quite sure what all that's going to look like, but we're getting to that point because like, I've hacked it manually, for a few months now. And now it's at the point where it's like, there's too much volume to keep hacking it manually like that. So it's time to like formalize some of that stuff within software, which is what I was texting you about this morning about time to build product. Right. And I couldn't like put it into words yet, but like, yeah. So anyways, that's going on. So looking like to the future, onboarding more editors. I've got a few more like prospects that are just about to buy. Gonna have another 100,000 word bundle bought soon. Should be this week. A couple more agencies that are like on the bubble, that'll be doing 30-ish, 40-ish thousand words a month through us as well. So it's time to really scale capacity and build technology around it to be able to scale that capacity and scale out the number of customers that we have. So it's exciting. And at the same time, I've had a lot of sales calls recently. I've had quite a number of people, on phone calls and, they take stuff takes a little longer to close than, past businesses that I've had. But I know some of them are going to hit. And so, but also I just decided today with the volume that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, I'm actually going to pull back on, sales, and pull back on marketing because I know the volume is there. I'm just not going to be as aggressive on it, right? Following up every 3 days with prospects and like that kind of thing. Let it go to a week, 10 days, check in with them, and people that are like, check in with me in the future. Cool. I'll boomerang it back for 2 months from now. Right. So like just not being as aggressive with sales so that we can, get the basics right. So that then we can scale as like, I'm thinking now, cause we're probably going to do, I think we did like 100,000 words last month. We're probably going to do 200 to 250 this month. And I'm thinking to like, what does it look like to do 1 million words in a month across 15, 20 customers? Because that's where I need to be thinking. Because if we can get to that point and it works for 15 to 20 customers, then it works for 150 to 200 customers, right? And at like millions, tens of millions per month eventually. Because I genuinely believe we can get there. So that's where I'm really starting to think. So resetting the base, setting the base stronger than it currently is, and then pouring the gas on. Because I know, because we've got the revenue, and I know we can generate the leads and demos.
Yeah. Yeah, that's we're experiencing some of that at the Good, where it's like you need those trigger points, those gates where it's like if we have 15 clients today and we want to go to 30 a year from now, at what point do you need another CRO strategist? At what point do you need another developer to build the test? So, and we kind of want to get that down to either a revenue number or a number of client accounts number, something like that, where it's just like, hey, we said this trigger is 23 clients and we're at 21. So we might want to start the hiring process and get some candidates in the door and have conversations and stuff like that. It sounds like you're describing a similar thing where it's like, okay, if we want to do 1 million words a month, how many client accounts is that? And how many editors does that require? Managing editors? Do we need a project manager in there at some point to just handle client communications, whatever?
Yes, we do. We will. Yeah, for sure. And we actually said it today, me and Sophia, my right hand, we actually set today that like, all right, this is how much capacity we're going to need across like all the customers that we have. These are the editors that we have. So this is how many new editors we need. This is what we're forecasting for June. And so are we going to need more editors? And also, exactly that trigger point, like you said, that like, okay, we crossed this. So we actually said when we have forecasted 75% of the current capacity that we have, we need to start finding another editor.
Yeah.
So if we're at 400,000 words, of capacity, once we cross 300 in like basically like guaranteed, we need to be hiring another editor, because if one or two more customers hit, we're not going to have the capacity. So yeah, we've set that right now. That number will probably change. But
when I hear you say
that's where we've set
find
it
another editor pretty consistently, but never like expand the role of this editor, is there a reason that maybe you're not taking someone full time or whatever part time at their contract? Like, did you make that decision, or is that just kind of the way things are shaking out?
It's the way things have shaken out for now. I actually went back, and I'm glad you asked that question, because I've not had to plan capacity at Credo before, because it's always been like we've never not had enough agencies, and I realized a few months ago that like with EditorNinja, it's all going to be about capacity, because like not going to be a problem to bring on clients, or bring on customers, but we're solving capacity issues for them, so we need to have a strong like editor like recruiting pipeline. It was the same thing with Uber, right? The way theirs worked, they had to have enough drivers to not have people wait too long, that kind of thing. So what I did this morning was I was like, okay, how much capacity do we need? How much, and then how many editors do we have? How many hours are we getting from each? What can they edit per hour? And so like basically what do we have? And that was like, okay, we need more editors. Just looking at the numbers, but I did also go to them and I was like, okay, Sophia, can you take on more? Editor 2, can you take on more? Editor 3, can you take on more? And neither of those two could. Sophia could up hers though. So we upped hers by about 8,000 words or 10,000 words a week. So that got me another 40,000 words. But ultimately she is going to be like owning accounts. She's also managing editor on one account. She's going to be owning others, kind of handling the signing of docs and QAing and capacity planning and that sort of stuff for her customers. So basically long story short, the reason why I'm saying more editors is because my current editors can't give me more capacity, but editor C will probably have more capacity come July, once he's finished with this like theater production that he's doing right now. So my inclination, and this is how I've worked with Credo as well, is like, okay, we have available leads. Let's see if anyone that we're currently working with that we know is good wants more. If no one wants more, then let's bring on an additional, a new customer. So that's what I'm trying to do with EditorNinja as well. My goal and my guess, don't hold me to this, but my guess is by August, someone will be full-time on EditorNinja. I don't know who that'll be, but someone will be full-time.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same thing. It's like, at what point do you bring someone in full-time? And I think, it probably makes sense. I don't know, the video editor I'm going to talk about in a minute is effectively full-time, but because of the currency conversion, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, it's a little different. I think really the full-time role at Castaway would be more that project manager, account manager, some kind of operational role. And then the rest of the technical stuff, the specialty skills, we could get away with contract support for quite a long time, I would think. And it might be significant contract support, right? It might be like 20, 30 hours a week or something, but I just don't know that has to be like a W-2 kind of role for the way that we're set up, unless we get really big, and then it's like, yeah, sure, you can have an in-house video editor or whatever.
Totally.
What about Bento? What made you go with Bento? Is that just kind of like Jesse's a good dude, and he and I have traded a few messages, and it's like, I just want to send my money and support him, or is there a product differentiation that really stands out to you?
Jesse's a good dude. Also, he toured me, he demoed me around it few weeks ago and just blew my mind. I was like, wait, you do that? And it was just like some of it's just magic, where I'm like, wait, how are you able to do that? Like, someone fills out a form on my site and I don't have to like have an integration set up to push that information into Bento. Bento just grabs the email and it automatically appears in my account. And I'm like, wait, are you serious? And he has chat. He has pop-ups. Like, he just has all the things that you need that like with Credo, I've just kind of like, put it all together with like Active Campaign and Opt-in Monster and like all, Drift and like all of these various things. It's all in one place and it's wicked cheap. So I'm like, okay, let's do that. And it is like, it's indie SaaS, right? So there are some things that aren't like, they're a little confusing about it. I couldn't find certain things, right? But also like I'm in the Discord and Jesse jumps in and he's like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to work on that like section of the site. So I'm going to jump in and work on that. And over the next 2 hours, he's like putting check marks, like fix this bug, fix this thing, fix that thing. It's like, whoa, okay. Like you're actively working on this thing. It's inspiring too. So, it's still early days with it, but I needed something. Also that was it. Like I needed something for Editor Ninja for emails and sending out communications and workflows and all that stuff. And so it was like, yeah, let's give this a shot, So far it's just mind boggling. Like I can't believe he's done it by like on his own, basically. It's really just cool. incredible technology. So
I have to check it out. I'm kind of at that point too. And I'm like, do I get a CRM? And then, you get all these disparate tools and they're all 10 to 15 bucks a month a piece, and you add it all up and it gets to be pretty pricey, but it looks like Bento is much more competitive on price. So if it checks the box for
I've got a free CRM, and then I'm using Bento for like marketing automation and like that sort of stuff. So what's going on at Castaway, man? I've just talked for quite a while about Editor Ninja.
Quite a bit. So like I said, we hired a video editor. They're already in there doing great work, helping me with some client deliverables, but also putting together some lead gen assets. I think I've talked about this concept of like the blitz before, where it's like, let's just produce a bunch of free material for a high profile show and then send that to them and say, hey, we made this for you. We're big fans of your show, whatever. If you want more of this kind of stuff, that's exactly what we do. Let's have a conversation. So we'll see how that strategy works as a lead generation potential, but that person's integrated. It's gone really well so far. So glad that I made that call. I also found, I think last time we talked, I was like, my next roadblock is editorial selection, basically. So listen to the episode, find the most interesting parts and identify them so people can clip it up into the various assets. I found a writer with a journalism degree and a journalistic background, and she said, $100 an episode, I'll take care of that for you. I'll come up with the headlines or the titles for the actual clips. You put like kind of the topical headline at the very top. So she's going to do all that for me. We're going to test drive that on a few episodes and see how that goes. There's also the opportunity to have, this just came up on my radar literally yesterday, but there's a summer intern who also is studying journalism that basically she's like, you don't even have to pay me. And I'm like, of course, I just believe you should pay interns or anybody that's doing work for you. But, it could be something super modest, like $15 an hour or something. And she could come in there and do that kind of stuff for me too. So that's really good. The WordPress migration is almost done. So I had a developer help me out with that, and she's got all the core page templates built out, homepage, service page, the blog homepage, and then the blog article template, contact us, all those essentials. Those are all built out, branded. And so now the next layer for me would be to fill out the content and identify what graphics, because she's like a front end developer and a graphic designer. So I can go in and say, hey, for this graphic, mock me up a chart that looks like this with the Castaway logo or whatever, and something like that. So I have to kind of build that wish list for her to go out and produce, and then just start building out these various service pages and then push it live. And I actually have a new domain that's not trycastaway.com, so I'm able to build it live and see exactly what it'll look like instead of in some kind of staging environment, which is kind of cool. Nice. And there'll be like a big announcement around that of just moving over to a new domain. It's not castaway.com, so don't go look at that. But it is a little bit better than trycastaway.com, so I'll say that. And then the last thing on the operational side is beta testing this new service. I know I've talked to you about it, John, but I don't think I mentioned it on the show. It's basically around personal branding. And it's like, show up for an interview and we'll produce a bunch of assets for you to keep your social media queue full on a weekly basis. Found a pretty talented writer who basically said, hey, I love what you're doing. He's already working with me on the podcast side of the house. And he's like, I love this concept. And it's kind of like what I've been doing independently. So what if we stand up a landing page with a wait list and get some folks in the door, and then I do 100% of the delivery, you mark it up 25% for my rates, and you just take that home as kind of a sales commission. And I was like, sounds like it's worth a test. Like my first reaction was like, is this a distraction? Is this a departure from the core offering? But it is something that I've been thinking about as, a valuable service for over a year now. And it's like, the only reason I didn't pursue it is because like, it's just one more thing for me to think about. But if literally all I have to do is have the sales conversation and pass it over to this writer, and he does the interviews, he produces all the assets, he handles the client communications, and I get to take home 25%. Like, starting to sound like a no-brainer to at least try, right? And if it doesn't shake out
So is
exactly as
he?
we envision.
Yeah. No, it sounds like a great test, and yeah, we've talked about it, and I'm interested. Has he? Is he going to handle all the client communication and like all of that, like under the Castaway brand too?
Yep.
So you're basically white labeling his services, and that's pretty big.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how it came about. So basically, the current Castaway service is like, we'll take a podcast episode and we'll convert that into a blog post and a Twitter thread and some social media posts for you. And he's the writer doing all the written assets of that, right? And then we have a video editor doing the video assets. Well, what happened was,
Sure.
I was working with the show, and he was researching the host to get a feel for his voice. Like, how's he already posting on social? What is he already writing about on his company blog? Like, what is his voice? What is his tone like? How does he talk? And he was researching that person on LinkedIn. And of course, you know how you get the notification like somebody visited your profile? Well, the host saw that the writer visited his profile, clicked through, saw that he offers writing services as a freelancer, and DM'd him and said like, hey man, do you want to help me just like get my thought leadership out there? It looks like this is kind of what you do. So he's like very transparent. He's like, hey, I'm not trying to steal a client for you. I'm telling you exactly how this shook out. And they want to work with me together. And then I pitched him on this personal branding service idea. He said, well, that's what I love to do. And I said, well, what if we did this together and you handle all the delivery? So to answer your question in a roundabout way, yes, he's going to basically have a Castaway email address. He's going to present as a Castaway member of the team. He's going to handle all of the client communications, run the interviews, schedule the interviews, produce the written assets. Literally all I have to do is go acquire the customer, have the sales conversation, pass them along, and introduce them to him. And everything else in theory should just happen.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I mean, it's a little lower. It's a little lower margin than like a productized service should ultimately operate at, but also, I mean, I would basically look at that 25% as like a sales commission, and so like an ongoing sales commission, and that's a pretty healthy like ongoing sales commission. So
Yeah.
that's not bad. And then also you could potentially upsell those same people to other things, right?
Right.
So like it's kind of a land and expand thing. It's like, yeah, this is an offering that we have, and then hey, you're doing you're doing a podcast, right? Like I mean, take me for example. I could hire Castaway to via Castaway hire this guy to do my reels and like Instagram stuff that I've been doing, and then like, hey, I'm starting a podcast with my friend. Could you be like, hey, James, I'm starting a podcast with you? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you get my point, right? It's like, you expand it. It's like, all right, now we're doing like your personal branding stuff and we're doing your podcast. And, you kind of end up getting multiple services like out of them. So, or it could go the other way where it's like, hey, you're doing a podcast, but like, what are you doing for your personal stuff? And there might be some like, well, shouldn't that just be included with the podcast? And maybe it is. It becomes an add-on. Do it like solo, or it becomes an add-on for your like, your Castaway like podcast episodes stuff. But like, you can figure out how that works. But I like that idea because you're meeting different needs, right? It's different customers that are also that. Someone needing personal branding may also need podcast stuff. Someone doing a podcast may also need personal branding stuff. I like it. It's a natural like cross sell.
And I think initially, at least, it's going to have to be kind of custom quotes, because especially with personal branding, like you're doing Instagram Reels. Not everybody's doing that. Some people want to post on LinkedIn. There is really no, like LinkedIn supports video, but that's not the core part of that platform, right? So it's a little bit of a different approach. So basically, I think where we'll get is like kind of the model you use. Like you have to have a sales conversation with James. I understand your needs. I understand what platforms are important to you. We put together a package. That 25% margin is if you only do written stuff. If you're like, I just want to have an interview, and out of that interview, I want to produce a blog post, an email from my newsletter, LinkedIn posts and tweets for the week, then that's all handled by this writer. But if you say, okay, I want to take that interview and I want to record it and I want to make that into video clips, or if I want to chop that up into reels and I want to caption it, then we get the true Castaway production side of the house involved. There's a higher price point for that because you've got an audio visual element to it as well. And that brings in the margins from the Castaway side of the house, which are higher than 25%. So your blended margin might be closer to 27 or 30 or something like that. It starts to creep up there. So I do like it as like, it doesn't even have to be a cross sell, really. It's like, what do you want strictly from a personal branding perspective? It's just the source material is different. It's not starting with the podcast. It's starting with a one-to-one interview to get your expertise out of your head and onto some kind of paper and then let specialists chop that up into a bunch of different marketing formats. And then that keeps your personal branding social media queue full 5 days a week, every business day, right? That's kind of the value prop. So
yeah, I like it. I have some friends that have people that do that for them already. So like it's also something that's in the market, and some of them are pretty expensive. You know, like I'm talking multiple thousands a month, and I'm like, wow, that seems like a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like if I could do it for like, but then there are some that are like expensive. You know, one of your kind of competitors that we've talked about before, they're like their prices have gone up, and they're like, yeah, it's $1,000 a month for one you know, episode a week or something like that. Like, I mean, like, you know, 3-minute video chopped up into like 4 different assets, and it's $1,000 a month. And I'm like, one a week? Like, that seems like nothing, you know, like the value isn't there for me. So I think if you can find, and I'm sure they've done that for a reason, like maybe it's just really hard to make that profitable, but yeah, I think there's a need. I'm going to be stoked to hear the updates on how that goes.
Yeah. The current providers are all over the place. Like I've gotten a quote from somebody who is basically a LinkedIn ghostwriter. And basically what he does is he has a 3-day a week or a 5-day a week package, and he'll also get in there and engage. So if somebody comments on your stuff, he'll reply to them, or he'll reach out and comment on a few organic posts, like from your feed or whatever, basically just ghost managing your LinkedIn profile to keep you active. And his quotes were $2,500 to $3,500 a month for 3 days or 5 days a week. And so that's a tasty little price point right there. If I can, you know, if I could get to that point. That's not what I'm thinking. I mean, I'm thinking of pricing this, depending on deliverables, anywhere from as low as $500 for a very basic package up to $2,500, but that would be with the video clips involved. And that's like, you know, 3 to 5 video clips a week and stuff like that. So, but I've heard of LinkedIn ghostwriters. I've heard of Twitter ghostwriters making 6 figures a year for the very big profiles that already have 100,000 followers plus, or 1 million followers. Like, you just want to write on behalf of that person and publish threads every day. Those folks make 6 figures. So there's definitely like one of those things where I don't think I need to validate the market. I just need to validate the solution that fits and find a niche within that market for folks that are still, you know, having a problem that's unaddressed.
Yeah, personal branding for entrepreneurs or something, you know, something like that. I think the branding thing is throwing me off. I would think about that a little bit, because it's like, for me, branding is like, you're going to come up with the style guide and, you know, whatever, I don't know, do something with my website. I don't even know, but like, you know, fix my profile, you know, whatever, to optimize my profile, that kind of thing. I think it's more like, I don't know what it is. The branding word throws me though, like personally, but I think there's a need there. And I think you could focus on, you know, 6-figure, 7-figure entrepreneurs or something like that, right? Like it's the Hormozy playbook. So do something interesting, start talking about those things, and
100% on board with you there.
Yeah.
Like,
what else is going on?
Personal branding's not great either. And like, I thought leadership, but then like, that's kind of a cringy term. Like, it's just misused so much that people are like, I'm a thought leader, you know, like I don't love that either. So I do have to find a better way to describe the service that's like intuitive, but also not, you know, I don't know, not cringy in some way. So and not like social media posting, right? Like, because that's just so like overseas, outsourced, you know, low quality. So but there's something there. Yeah, agreed. Okay, the last thing I have, let's see. So I will say I have a handful of folks who I basically tweeted out something to the effect of that service overview. So I said, hey, agency owners, here's your personal branding playbook. Do a weekly interview that's 30 minutes long with somebody on your team. Take the video, put it on YouTube, and convert it into shorts, reels, and TikTok. Take the audio, make it a podcast episode, make a transcript, and then convert that into blog posts, newsletter, and social posts. You get 20 to 30 marketing assets from one conversation. For me, that got 60 likes and a few retweets. Like, that's pretty good for me. I've had a handful of folks reach out to me and say, hey, saw your tweet about this. I'd like to talk details. So, you know, I'm hopeful that I can kind of pre-sell anywhere from 3 to 5 of these folks and just get them in on the loose subscription or 3-month commitment or something like that, and then beta test the heck out of the service and get the core offering not dialed in, and then, you know, have that be a service page on the site at some point.
Got it. Yeah, no, I like it. It seems like good pre-validation. Build a quick thing and see who bites, you know?
Yeah.
Build the engine while you're flying or something like that. I don't know how that metaphor goes,
like
but yeah.
You jump off the cliff and build some wings on the way down or something, like learn to fly on the way down.
That's right. Find a parachute. I don't know.
Yeah, save yourself. I don't know. The last thing I have is just kind of I usually include some kind of a challenge here where it's like, and I described it as the plumbing, right? So like as I get all these moving parts going, especially if we add this new service, like I'm getting by with Google Sheets and a basic Trello board and things like that, which was fine when it was like just James doing delivery and sales and then maybe help from a couple of contractors. But as the video editor comes on board, as this writer comes into a fully white label, like tracking all these disparate client accounts and projects and individual episodes and what stage they're at, I just think I need to figure out the proper technical plumbing that makes all that water flow in the proper direction so we don't lose track of anything. I think I just need to just professionalize that a little bit. And so that's kind of the challenge I'm thinking about right now as we start to grow behind or in the back of the house, I guess. And then, you know, with a focus of eventually like giving more energy to marketing to fill the funnel. So that's why I was particularly interested in Bento, because part of that is like marketing automation and just kind of that post-purchase experience, like customer onboarding. What can I do with a tool like Bento to welcome those folks automatically so I don't have to remember to reach out and be personable and stuff like that?
Sure. Yeah, totally. No, it could work for you if you have enough volume, for sure.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I think that's the last thing I had. Did anything come to mind that you want to share that we didn't touch on earlier? Otherwise, we can bring this thing in for a landing.
No, I mean, it seems like we're both kind of in an exciting time of hiring people, kind of building out the services. Like, it's interesting to me to observe how we're both like, you know, okay, I'm pushing on sales, and then like, oh crap, I need to like back off sales to like have the capacity to be able to do it. And now I need to build the systems, and then okay, now I'm pushing on sales again. And that's just how these services go. I mean, that's how early stage goes, honestly. You know, and eventually you hit it and it works. And then like all those things are in place. You've got the ops, you've got the team, you've got the recruiting pipeline, you've got the delivery, you've got the communication, you've got the tech. And then that's where stuff like really takes off. But it's cool to hear that you're making great progress on finding these people, trying new services, which makes sense with your existing services. It's not like full on, now we're just doing personal branding for entrepreneurs. It's like, no, we're repurposing content, but we're taking that same repurposing of content for podcasts, and now we can do it for YouTube videos, for, you know, for entrepreneur social media stuff, like whatever. So yeah, it's cool to kind of see you building out that like product ladder as well, that offer ladder, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's exciting, man. Good stuff.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we'll bring it in for a landing then. All the notes and references and everything can be found at workingsessions.fm. Shout out to Bento for powering the back end of Editor Ninja. I know you gave me the shout out last episode, so this one is brought to you by Editor Ninja. Check them out at editorninja.com if you need some done for you content and copy editing services on a monthly basis or just as a Word bundle now available. Check it out. Yeah, John, thanks as always for your time, man. I always look forward to talking to you.
Same, James. Good to see you, man. Talk to you next time.